Welcome everyone, I'm Harry Sims and this is episode 2 of the Just an SDR show where I interview interesting people who spent time in SDR land, and I do it because I'm worried. If the SDR dies, we automate out the entry-level outbound sales roles in B2B, then how will the next generation get the opportunities that we've had? Today I have Anthony Natoli. Welcome Ant, thanks for joining.
Happy to be here, really excited. And love the concept of the show and excited to contribute in any way I can.
Awesome. Well, you have an amazing story, and I want to kick off by giving you a quick introduction and then sharing kind of the impact you've had on me personally. So unless you've been living under a rock, you already know who you are. Ant is a senior AE at LinkedIn today, and he got his start in BDR, SDR land with various stops along the journey, but he was a top performer at demand-based, top performer. Go look at his numbers. He's been at Outreach and also built and ran sales development teams with, again, a few other stops along the way. Go follow him on LinkedIn. I'll include all his links, and you're probably already following him, to be honest. The impact you've had on me personally, this is a vulnerable story, and I hope I don't cry, but many, many years ago when you started posting, I was a hater of yours. And you were all over my feed all the time, and I'd see your content, and it never landed with me. I thought I knew best. You couldn't teach me shit. I probably also left you a few shitty comments too. That right there sums up who I was back then. And I vividly remember the moment it all changed. You posted something, and maybe we can share it with people. I don't know. I don't know if you remember the post, but it was a side view of you, overweight, looking very ill and unhealthy, just like I was looking at the time. And next to it was a picture of you looking healthy, happy. And that was years ago, compared to probably what you are now, that was nothing. And I did my usual thing in my head. I'm like, oh, what's this guy sharing now? What's he trying to sell us a fitness course now? That's honestly who I was back then. And then I read down in the post, hoping to be offended and annoyed at you and being a hater. And it was about your gambling addiction and the impact it had on your life and your loved ones. And it slapped me in the face. I didn't have a gambling addiction, thank God, but I was an alcoholic. I looked like you did in the first picture. And I actually have a picture planned of very similar, which shows it, especially that side view where you can see everything. And then I heard you talk more about the external validation and the self-destructive behaviors. And this was the exact same thing I was going through, just in a different form. I followed you on Twitter, and I started to see how you were living your life and how vulnerable you were being about some of the things you'd been through. I started seeing the pattern. It's, the fitness, the family, the discipline, even the faith stuff. Saw you benching 3 plates, and I haven't had a drink since June 4th, 2023. I've been fully sober for a long time now. I'm down 40 pounds. I work out 10 to 12 times a week. I show up every day for the people who love me and not this external weird validation stuff that I was chasing before that never filled the hole. And I can bench 3 plates now, not on a free weight bench like you, but with a Smith machine. And I even run now, which if you'd told me I'm running 5-6 times a week 2 years ago, a year ago, I would tell you that you're crazy. So I really want to give you massive credit for being a big part of that. I credit you massively for changing my life, and my wife and kid and me definitely thank you for that. So yeah, weird story, but that's, I think, why we've, connected.
Well, I first want to say thank you for sharing all that. I can definitely empathize with how you may have viewed me prior to all of this. I used to be the same person who wasn't happy with who I was. So I felt the need to, even if it was not publicly, tear other people down in my head. And I know what a nasty place that can be. And I think we're living in a world where it's so easy to see a post from someone and judge them without even knowing who they are. So I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to see past maybe some of the tactical posts and things that really don't make up my character, but then giving me the opportunity to really share who I am as a person and run with that. So posting what I do about mental health, that is solely done for moments like this where people can share their story about how I've given them hope. Obviously you do the work, but that's all I could ever ask for is this short game of life that we play is how do I impact other people positively? And that's been an incredible part of my own journey is helping other people. So again, thank you for sharing that. It makes me feel good, selfishly, but I'm really excited for you and your journey. And now you're going to be able to help people because of the journey that you've been on. And I know episode and topic that we're on isn't like dedicated to this, but I think it's a really important one that coincides what we do as salespeople. Again, thank you for sharing all that.
Thank you, mate. It's intertwined for sure, especially when you're literally your job is about getting external validation.
Yep,
Like
exactly.
it definitely is. All right, icebreaker. Maybe we can warm it up a little bit. When you were a kid, what did you really want to be? Because I definitely don't think it was an SDR.
I wanted to play professional baseball. It's really interesting as you grow up. It can take you a long time to realize that that dream is not going to come true.
Yeah.
I think for me, it was probably sophomore year of high school. I just realized like I stopped growing. I didn't have the pop as some other kids that I would play in tournaments and things like this. So, yeah, I was convinced I was going to play professional baseball. I was really good, but that dream definitely faded away. But that's what I wanted to do when I was growing up.
Mine was rugby, and I still thought there was a chance for a long time, which was I had no knees as well, so it's like what my knee was gone. I've given the audience a little insight into your story, but what is your story?
What is my story? It's a good question. I guess my story, if I were to sum it up, is grew up, parents were divorced at a very young age. I grew up with my mom, my older sister. My mom got remarried to my stepdad, who I consider my dad. And I have a younger brother, younger sister because of that remarriage that they've really built an amazing family culture and raised us in, typical upper middle class family, grew up in New Jersey. But I had a lot of baggage as a kid because of, the turmoil that was caused because of the divorce and my mom living on her own for 3 years, and she didn't have a lot of money. And they're all things that manifested in my adult life. Was always very active in sports, was always kind of the class clown, always getting in trouble in school, always seeking external validation from people. And again, a lot of that stemmed from my childhood. I always had this addictive personality with like compulsive behavior. So like eating or feeling the need to like be involved in everything and be liked by everyone because I didn't feel good enough. And that carried through college, where I went to the University of Arizona, and then I moved to San Francisco after college, my first tech sales job, where I started as an SDR, working for like a 70-person mortgage tech company, where I was cold calling mortgage brokers and dialing by hand on an office phone. I didn't have outreach. I didn't have an Orem or a Nooks. I was just doing everything old school, and that really helped me build a thick skin professionally. But personally, I was making my own money, and I was gambling a ton. I was partying. I wasn't saving, and I was just going down a path of, self-destruction. And for anyone that knows my story, basically a few years after college, when I was like 26, was on paper doing really well, great AE job, living in San Francisco, all the friends in the world, was traveling, but I was, 60 pounds overweight. I was in six figures of bad debt, and was like really broken internally. Like my clothes didn't fit, and I just felt like a piece of shit. Yeah, I basically had a rock bottom moment where my parents, specifically my mom, caught me, gambling, even though they thought I was finished with that part of my life. Everything kind of crumbled at once and hit me. It was December 1st, 2019, where, I haven't made a bet of any kind since then, and really started my own personal development journey, climbing out of rock bottom. So deciding to give myself a chance at a new way of thinking and living. You got to think, for someone like me who lived my whole life chasing validation, being someone that wasn't comfortable in their own skin, I thought that was just who I was. And so this idea of trying to like change who I was seemed impossible. But, little by little, I took the steps towards a new way of being. And, it's been almost 5 years. It will be in December since that time. And my life looks completely different. And I still struggle. Everyone does, and you'll never not struggle. But my capacity to handle those moments of struggle, my self-awareness, my confidence in who I am, my relationships, everything has just gotten so much better because of that moment that I wouldn't trade for the world, even though I wouldn't wish it upon my worst enemy. The thoughts that I had on that flight back home from New Jersey to San Francisco, all my commissions were going to credit agencies and bookies, and parting ways with $10,000, knowing that it's going to someone else, and you bust your ass for 3 months, 6 months on a deal cycle just to pay someone else. Like those aren't happy thoughts to have going to bed every night. So it's a little bit about me now. Living in New Jersey with my girlfriend, our golden retriever. My relationships haven't been stronger with my family. I've got a great group of close friends. I only do things with the people that give me energy and joy. And I think that's like my biggest flex, is building a life around that. And it's a peaceful life. And that's like all I could ask for.
That's a great before and after right there. Was there a moment where you realized that your life in sales was either positively or negatively impacting your life at that moment?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think being in sales was the perfect outlet for me at that time, because it allowed me to chase that external validation, that dopamine hit of getting a response, closing a deal, making money. So in a way, it allowed me to scratch that itch that I had to be a hustler and top performer, but it also caused me to continue to tie my self-worth to something that I couldn't control. And so when things were high, they were really high. But when things were low, they were really low. And I had no sense of, hey, just because you didn't hit quota or just because you hit quota doesn't make you a better person or a worse person. I had no sense of that. I just thought everything that was happening externally, whether it was if I had a girlfriend, didn't have a girlfriend, if I got invited to this thing with friends, or I didn't get invited, or I hit my quota or not, I thought that's what made me who I was. It impacted it both positively, but very much so negatively, which I also think happens for a lot of people.
100%. You talk to my soul when you speak about stuff like this, and I've seen it over and over again. Let's bring it back to sales a little bit. From those early experiences, either professional, personal, whatever, how has that helped you succeed today at LinkedIn and in your past roles as you got later in your career? What are some of the big learning moments, the lessons, the things that you keep coming back to?
Yeah, if we go back to like my first job, cold calling mortgage brokers. We'll put a pin in the personal stuff for a second. But what I realized is that the top performers that I know, and what has made me the most successful, is this like idea of having the figure it out factor. So all the things that you can't teach, like the willingness to stay later, the willingness to like build internal relationships, the willingness to make those extra dials, the willingness to send those extra emails, the willingness to ask for feedback, the willingness to share your learnings with your team, being a good team player, the willingness to invest in yourself. I think this desire to succeed and that hunger that I had, the chip on my shoulder, definitely helped me. But I think the biggest learnings that I've taken with me that I was doing really well was that like figure it out factor, that high EQ, the high self-awareness. What I will say that I learned that I was doing negatively as a first-time AE when I was going through all that stuff was I was super needy and anxious with my prospects because I was in all this debt. I needed this commission, not only to actually pay my debts, but to make me feel whole as a person. And so when things weren't going my way, I would get super pissed off. I would get super chippy and needy, and that would affect all my other areas of my life. As I've obviously built a life where I don't have debt anymore and I've got savings and I've got self-confidence and self-respect, I don't need to be needy with prospects because I don't need that deal to make me feel good anymore. So I have this approach that's indifferent, and it doesn't mean that I don't care. I care about my performance, but my performance doesn't dictate if I have a high amount of self-worth anymore. And I think that is what has skyrocketed my performance. Hit 104% of my quota last half in my first 6 months at LinkedIn. And the biggest shift I noticed was my energy on calls. People love working with me and I love working with them is because we have a mutual understanding that I'm here to help you with a potential problem, and I'm not going to force anything on you. I'm going to be straight up if I can't help you. And this idea of like really being indifferent to the outcome and letting go what you can't control, that to me is more important than knowing the best discovery questions to ask or knowing how to negotiate. All that stuff you can teach. You can't teach the high EQ, the self-awareness, the indifference, the confidence. So that's the thing that I learned that I wasn't doing early in my career that has helped me. Combine that with the work ethic and the hustle and the chip that I have on my shoulder, it's been a great combination.
You know, when you say you haven't had a bet in 5 years-ish?
Yes.
You have. You just changed the bet. You bet on making yourself better instead of the external validation. And it comes through in how you speak. It's really, really cool. It's so clear.
I appreciate it.
You spent some time as an SDR leader. Tell us about that experience a bit, and what did that sort of teach you about running teams, building teams, leadership?
Yeah, it was really hard. I'd never been a manager before, and I got hired externally. I think that was the blessing and the curse of building a brand on LinkedIn. People were willing to take a shot on me because I was posting that I knew a lot. But I'd never been a manager. I didn't know what to expect. And I definitely asked people that I respected what were the pros and cons. And I took a leap, honestly. And I was walking into a pretty interesting situation where the previous manager got let go. Email domain was in the shitter, 20% open rates. And so there was an uphill battle to climb. And what I quickly learned is that it's a really hard job. People depend on you. It can be really tricky to navigate those relationships as a first-time manager when you don't have anyone that you're reporting to that can give you that experience. How I would sum it up was, it's definitely leadership. I would say is not for everyone. You should definitely go to a company where you have the leadership already in place that you can learn from. What I did learn that was positive was, importance of tracking everything and documenting everything. Because SDRs will ask you over and over again the same thing, and you need to have something documented that they can follow, making sure that you're auditing everything. It doesn't mean micromanaging, but it means what's the current state and what do we need to fix and what do we need to take action on, and really being like a scientist, especially if you're at a startup where there's no like clear product market fit yet. It's not something I would rule out in the future, but it definitely made me appreciate the world of being an individual contributor and the lack of people relying and depending on you. It's a different type of pressure, and it's definitely not for everyone. So I respect greatly people that make that their full career and dedicate their entire time to, because it's legitimately one of the hardest things that I've experienced in my career.
The variables multiply because you're dealing with lots of people, and then you have such limited control on the funnel and the go-to-market motion in most places, and it just compounds, dude. And this is one of the reasons why I'm doing this is because I worry that the time to value and the expectations of a new SDR, a new leader, are just insane right now. And I worry that people aren't going to get enough time to actually fail over and over again. That's how people learn. The reason I get inbound today and people want to work with me is because some other companies paid me to fail over and over again, and they don't have to pay, and now they get the lessons. Right. And I got this feeling that we're moving too fast down some of these paths, and we're going to ruin that for other people. All right, last few. What do you think the future looks like for SDRs and outbound?
Yeah, I think this answer may surprise some people, but I think it's getting back to the fundamentals and the basics and less AI automation to actually execute. Because think about this. If everyone is using the same AI tools to send emails, to make calls, then you're just going to start to sound the exact same as everyone else. So if you can get back to basics, go do customer drops if your prospects are in the office. When I was an SDR, I had the Pacific Northwest patch, and I would go with my AE to the physical office and drop things off. You can't beat that. No one's doing that right now. Go to events, go see people in person, ask your managers if you can do that. send video. I think all of these things that used to work, like 2017, 2018, 2019, that no one's doing anymore, those are the things that are going to work because no one's doing them. I will say, however, AI has a place to make your job more efficient for sure, like research and finding triggers. I think all of that is really important to prioritize the upfront work that SDRs will do, but execution, nothing stands in the way of being problem centric, actually giving a shit about your customers and prospects, and doing the things that other people aren't willing to do because they're trying to shortcut with AI. I think that's the future. I think the future of SDRs are also really good at marketing and building brand and getting in front of their prospects in the channels that they live, like communities and events and these dinners that some people hold, and CTO connection, and a lot of these different areas that just aren't tapped into by SDRs because they're just sitting behind a computer doing AI. That's the human aspect of the SDR is going to help people stand out in the future.
I need people on here that I disagree with, that say they're all going to die, and I want to have a big argument with them for views. But I couldn't agree more. I think you may have covered this, but if you did have one piece of advice for the next generation of SDRs watching, what would it be?
Two things. I think from the mental health mindset aspect is invest in that part of your person and who you are. Outline who you want to become and what you need to do to become that person. Don't get stuck in autopilot. Really invest in your mindset and understand if there's negative things in your life, where they're coming from. And really try to hone in on neutral thinking, which is not getting too high, not getting too low. Try to focus on letting go of the things you can't control, so you give yourself space to focus on what you actually can. Give yourself grace. Practice your mindset. It's a muscle like anything else. The second thing is get back to basics and don't follow the trends of the internet just because they're trendy. Do what works for you. Be a scientist. Test constantly. Let your prospects dictate what action you take next based on the feedback you get from the market, not just because what you see me or some other people posting on LinkedIn. Those are just ideas that you can test. It's not a silver bullet. It's not meant for you to drop what you're doing and just start this new way of you going to market. Be smart, do what works for you, and constantly be testing. And don't be afraid of the human approach that many people are forgetting.
And then last one, who else should we interview?
I think Kyle Acey is a great one because he started as an SDR. Brian Lamana, those are two people that post on LinkedIn that started as SDRs that have incredible success now, that can walk the walk as much as they talk the talk. And then my former boss, Jay Toole at Demandbase, he runs go-to-market there now, but he started his career as an SDR and is an absolute legend. He doesn't post on LinkedIn, but he's one of those guys that just has such a wealth of knowledge, and I think he would be great for this topic.
Yeah. He's, I don't know if it was really completely him, but he's obviously been part of it. Demandbase have the same lineage as Snowflake, or similar. You have these young kids going in there with nothing, coming out first year with $1, $2, $3 million net new, and then their careers explode. Same thing as Snowflake, and they go into different parts of an org. And I see these things because I've watched it happen over and over again and been jealous of everyone, but I will definitely do that. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Is there anything else you want to finish up with?
No, I want to thank you again for sharing that story. I want my story to give people hope that there is if you're feeling stuck right now, there is a way and a path to a new way of thinking and living for yourself. Like, change is possible. And if anyone is struggling, just reach out and I'm happy to help point you and move you in that direction.
100%. Thank you, mate. Have a great one. Bye.